Ambassador Hannah Lee stood in the Great Hall of Axiom Prime and looked at the alien faces around her. The Galactic Council had invited humanity to join them 5 years ago. They had promised peace. They had promised protection. They had promised that Earth would be safe among the stars. Hannah believed them. She had spent her whole life working for this moment. A seat at the table, a voice among the great powers of the galaxy. She smiled as she walked toward the central platform where High Arbiter Velos waited for her. Was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that showed no warmth. He had led the council for 300 years. His word was law. His decisions shaped the fate of entire worlds. Ambassador Lee, he said, his voice flat and cold. We are pleased you could join us for the signing. The honor is mine, High Arbiter, Hannah replied. She kept her voice calm even though her heart was beating fast. Today they would sign the treaty. Today Earth's colonies would finally be protected, thousands of light years away. Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched his fleet break apart. He had served in the military for 40 years. He had built the United Earth Fleet into the strongest force humanity had ever known, and now he was destroying it. The Council had asked for a show of good faith. They wanted humanity to reduce their military power. They wanted to see that humans could be trusted, so Taiho gave the order. 40% of his ships powered down their weapons and flew back to Earth. He told himself it was worth it. Peace was worth any price. He was wrong. On the colony world of New Busan, 12 million people lived their ordinary lives. Farmers worked in the fields. Children played in the streets. Families sat down for dinner and talked about their days. They did not know that death was coming for them, Captain. Yuna Kim was on patrol nearby when her sensors detected the incoming fleet. At first she thought it was a mistake, as the ships belonged to the Dominion, a military group that worked closely with the Council. They were supposed to be allies. Sir, they are charging weapons, her tactical officer said. His name was Lieutenant Woojin Beek, and his voice was shaking. Yuna grabbed her communicator. Dominion Fleet, this is Captain Kim of the Earth vessel Retribution. Please state your intentions. There was no reply. And the Dominion ships flew past her and headed straight for New Busan. They are firing, Woojin said. Yuna watched in horror as the first bombs fell. Bright flashes of light covered the surface of the planet. Cities disappeared in seconds. The ground itself seemed to crack and burn. She tried to move her ship to help, but a message came through from the Council station nearby. Earth vessel Retribution, you are ordered to hold position. Do not interfere with lawful Council operations. Lawful? Yuna screamed at the screen. They are killing civilians. This matter does not concern you, Captain. Hold position or face consequences. Yuna stood frozen on her bridge. Crew looked at her with desperate eyes. They wanted her to do something. They wanted her to fight. But she knew that if she attacked the Dominion fleet, she would start a war that humanity could not win. Not with 40% of their ships already gone, so she did nothing. She stood there and watched New Busan burn. 12 million people died that day. Men, women, and children. Gone in less than an hour. Back on Axiom Prime, Ambassador Hannah Lee learned about the attack in the worst possible way. She was standing next to High Arbiter Velos when his assistant whispered something in his ear. Velos nodded slowly, and something that might have been a smile crossed his thin lips. Is something wrong? Hannah asked. I am afraid there has been an incident, Velos said. Your colony world of New Busan has been corrected. Corrected. Hannah felt ice spread through her chest. Hey, what do you mean corrected? The colony was found to be in violation of Territorial Clause 712. The Dominion fleet was dispatched to handle the matter. I am told there were no survivors. Hannah could not breathe. No survivors. 12 million people. Her cousin lived on New Busan. Her cousin's children? Gone. You did this, she whispered. You ordered those? Velos looked at her with those cold, empty eyes. The Council does what is necessary to maintain order. Humanity was growing too quickly. You were becoming a threat. This was simply a correction. You should be grateful we did not target Earth itself. Hannah wanted to scream. She wanted to attack him with her bare hands. But she was smarter than that. She reached into her pocket and pressed a small button. The recording device she always carried began to capture everything. "So the council ordered the death of 12 million innocent people because you were afraid of us?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "Afraid?" Velos laughed. It was a horrible sound. "We are not afraid of humans. You are insects. You are nothing. You simply removed a problem before it could grow. Now you will know your place." Hannah nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "Now we know exactly where we stand." She turned and walked out of the great hall. Her hands were shaking. Tears ran down her face. But she kept walking until she reached her ship. Then she sent the recording to Earth. General Minho Choi received the message 3 hours later. He was an old soldier with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in wars on Earth before humanity ever reached the stars. He thought those days were behind him. He listened to the recording 5 times. Each time, his face grew darker. Each time, his hands gripped the table harder. When he finally looked up, his entire staff was watching him. They had all heard it. They all knew what it meant. "Call back every ship," Minho said quietly. "Every soldier, every weapon. Call them all back, sir," one of his officers asked. "What are we going to do?" Minho stood up slowly. His eyes burned with a fire that made everyone in the room step back. "They wanted us weak," he said. "They wanted us afraid. They thought we would bow down and accept their cruelty." He walked to the window and looked up at the stars. "They've made a terrible mistake. They've given us something far more dangerous than fear." "What is that, sir?" Minho turned around. His voice was cold as death itself. "A reason." 3 months passed after the massacre of New Busan. In that time, humanity did something that no species in galactic history had ever done before. They went completely silent. Every human ship returned to Earth space. Every communication channel went dark. Every trade route closed. Every diplomatic mission ended. It was as if humanity had simply disappeared from the galaxy. High Arbiter Velos sat in his throne room and felt something strange growing in his stomach. He had ruled the council for 300 years. He had destroyed dozens of species who challenged his power. None of them had ever reacted like this. The weak ones always begged for mercy. The strong ones attacked immediately and were crushed. But humans did neither. They simply stopped. "Send emissary Thren to investigate," Velos ordered. "I want to know what they are doing." Thren was one of the few council members who had opposed the attack on New Busan. He believed it was unnecessary and cruel. But he was loyal to the council, so he took his ship and flew toward human space. He never got close. As soon as he reached the border, 100 human warships appeared around him. They did not fire. They did not speak. They simply pointed their weapons at his ship and waited. Thren tried to send a message. "This is Emissary Thren of the Galactic Council. I come in peace to discuss." The channel went dead. The human ships moved closer. Their weapons grew brighter. Thren understood. He turned his ship around and flew back to the council as fast as he could. "They would not even speak to me," he told Velos. "They just stared." Velos felt that strange feeling in his stomach grow stronger. He told himself it was nothing. Humans were weak. They had already lost. They would come crawling back eventually, begging for forgiveness. He was very, very wrong, deep beneath the surface of Earth. In a secret facility that no alien had ever seen, Dr. Sujin Han worked without rest. She was the greatest scientist humanity had ever produced. For years, she had developed weapons in secret, hiding them from the council's inspectors. The council thought they knew everything about human technology. They thought they had seen all of humanity's power. They were fools. Sujin looked at the weapon on her table. It was small, no bigger than her hand. But it could collapse a warship into itself using gravity waves. She had built 100 of them in the last month. She would build 1,000 more before she was done. How much longer? General Minho Choi asked. He visited her laboratory every day now. 2 more weeks, Sujin replied. Then we will be ready.
Wait.
Minho nodded. Make it faster if you can. The fleet is waiting. The fleet. The greatest military force ever assembled by any species in the history of the galaxy. And no one outside of human space knew it existed. Admiral Taiho Park floated in the shadow of Jupiter and looked at his ships. 3,000 warships hung in the darkness, running on minimal power to avoid detection. They had been gathering here for months, arriving one by one, silent as ghosts. Taiho had rebuilt everything the council made him destroy. He had built more. Every factory on Earth worked day and night producing weapons and ships. Every able person had volunteered to serve. Humanity had never been so united. Humanity had never been so angry. Captain Unikim commanded the Vanguard fleet. She was not the same woman who had watched New Busan burn. That woman had believed in peace. That woman had trusted the council. That woman was dead. The new Yuna trained her crews with brutal efficiency. Every day, she showed them footage from New Busan, the bombs falling, the cities burning, the children screaming as the fire took them. Remember this? She told her soldiers. Remember what they did to us. Remember what our mercy cost us. When the time comes, we will show them the same kindness they showed our people. Her tactical officer, Wu Junbeek, had changed as well. He no longer shook when he spoke. His eyes were hard and focused. He had spent 3 months studying human military history, learning strategies from ancient wars that aliens had never seen. They fight in straight lines, he told Yuna. They attack in patterns that their computers predict. They have never faced an enemy who thinks like we do. Then we will teach them, Yuna replied. On Earth. Ambassador Hannah Lee stood before the United Nations and spoke to the world. Every human watched. Every human listened. 5 years ago I told you that peace was possible, she said. Her voice was steady, but fire burned in her eyes. I told you that the council could be trusted. I was wrong. She paused and looked at the faces before her. Leaders from every nation. Soldiers and scientists. Mothers and fathers who had lost children on New Busan. We extended our hand in friendship, Hannah continued. They cut it off. We offered them our trust. They used it to murder 12 million of our people. They called us insects. They said we were nothing. Her voice grew louder. Ow! But we are not nothing. We are humanity. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed us. We have crawled out of the darkness again and again, and we will not be broken by creatures who do not understand what we truly are. She raised her fist, tried peace. Now they will learn war. The crowd erupted in cheers. On ships around Jupiter, soldiers watched the speech and roared their approval. In laboratories and factories, workers paused to listen and then returned to their tasks with new fire in their hearts. 2 weeks later, everything was ready. Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive ship called the Unforgiving. He looked at the stars and thought about what was coming. So many would die. Human and alien alike. The galaxy would never be the same. But he thought about New Busan. He thought about 12 million voices silenced forever. He thought about children who never got to grow up. Send the message, he ordered. A single transmission flew across the galaxy to the council. It contained no words, just coordinates and a date. The coordinates pointed to the council's capital world. The date was 14 days away. High Arbiter Velos received the message in his throne room. He read it 3 times, trying to understand. What does it mean? His advisor asked. Velos stared at the coordinates. The strange feeling in his stomach finally had a name. It was fear. The sky above the council capital turned black with human ships. They came out of faster-than-light travel all at once. 3,000 warships appearing in perfect formation. They filled the space above the planet like a wall of steel and fire. The citizens below looked up and saw the stars disappear behind an endless army. Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of the Unforgiving and looked at the world beneath him. Billions of aliens lived down there. They had built their civilization over thousands of years. They thought they were the masters of the galaxy. They were about to learn the truth. All ships report ready, his communications officer said. Hold position, Taiho ordered. Let them see us. Let them understand what is coming. On the planet below, alarms screamed in every city. High Arbiter Velos rushed to his command center and stared at the screens showing the human fleet. His hands were shaking. How is this possible? He demanded. We destroyed 40% of their military. We crippled them. His advisor looked pale. It seems they were hiding their true strength, High Arbiter. Our intelligence was wrong. Wrong? Velos screamed. We have watched them for decades. We knew everything about them. They knew nothing. Humans had learned to hide. Humans had learned to lie. Humans had learned that the only way to survive among predators was to become something worse. Warlord Corax took command of the Council's defensive fleet. He was the greatest military leader the Dominion had ever produced. He had won 100 battles against a dozen species. He looked at the human ships and felt confident. They outnumber us, his lieutenant said, but only by a small margin. And we have fought together for centuries. These humans have never faced a real war. Corax smiled. They are emotional creatures. They attacked in anger without thinking. We will break them easily. He gave the order to advance. 2,000 Dominion warships flew toward the human fleet in perfect formation. Weapons charged and ready. Captain Unikim watched them come. She stood on the bridge of the Retribution, her face calm and cold. 3 months ago, she had watched these same ships burn New Busan. She had dreamed of this moment every night since then. Vanguard fleet. Move to intercept, she ordered. 500 human ships broke from the main formation and flew toward the enemy. The Dominion. Computers tracked their movement and predicted their attack pattern. The computers were wrong. Lieutenant Wu Jinbeek had designed the human tactics himself. He had studied ancient battles from Earth's history. Wars fought with swords and spears. Wars fought with guns and tanks. Wars where humans killed each other in ways that alien minds could never imagine. Execute pattern Hannibal, Una commanded. The human ships scattered in what looked like chaos. The Dominion computers tried to track them, but the movements made no sense. Human vessels weaved and spun in patterns that followed no logic. No algorithm, no predictable sequence. Because humans did not fight like machines. Humans fought like humans. The first wave hit the Dominion fleet from 3 directions at once. Ships that seemed to be retreating suddenly turned and fired. Vessels that appeared damaged came back to life and attacked from behind. The Dominion formation broke apart as captains struggled to respond to attacks they could not predict. What are they doing? Corax shouted. This is insane. They are flying like madmen. His lieutenant stared at the screens. They are not following any known battle doctrine. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto them.
Ow.
Then Dr. Sujin Han's weapons activated. Small missiles flew from human ships and hit the Dominion cruisers. The explosions looked tiny at first. Then the gravity bombs inside them activated. Space itself bent around the Dominion ships. Metal crushed inward like paper being crumpled in a fist. Massive warships collapsed into themselves, becoming balls of twisted metal no bigger than a house. Crews had no time to scream. They were simply compressed. What kind of weapons are these? Corax whispered. He had never seen anything like it. No species had ever created such terrible power. But humans had. Humans had built these weapons in secret, powered by grief and rage and a promise that they would never be victims again. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, Dominion fleet was destroyed. Burning wreckage filled the space above the Council capital. Over 1 million alien soldiers were dead. Warlord Corax was captured alive when human marines boarded his command ship and dragged him from his throne. Admiral Baltaiho Park looked at the destruction and felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not pride. Just emptiness. He had done what needed to be done. He would carry the weight of it forever. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. His face appeared on every screen on the Council capital. Billions of aliens looked up at the human admiral, this creature they had dismissed as an insect. We did not come for your people, Taiho said. His voice was calm and steady. We came for your leaders. The ones who ordered the death of 12 million innocent humans. Send them to us, or we will come for them ourselves. You have 1 hour. The channel closed. In his tower, High Arbiter Velos watched the human fleet take position above every major city. Weapons pointed downward, ready to fire. Ready to do to his world what his forces had done to New Busan. His advisors were gone. They had fled when the battle turned. His guards were gone too. He was alone. For 300 years, Velos had held absolute power. He had destroyed anyone who challenged him. He had believed that nothing in the galaxy could threaten his rule. Now he stood at his window and watched human ships darken his sky. He remembered what he had called them. Insects. Nothing. He remembered the look in Ambassador Hannah's eyes when she walked out of his throne room. He had thought she was broken. He had thought she was defeated. He understood now. That look was not defeat. It was a promise. And humans always kept their promises. The doors of the Grand Chamber opened, and Ambassador Hannah Lee walked in. 1 year ago, she had entered this same room as a guest. She had smiled and bowed and believed that she was making history. She had trusted the creatures who sat in these seats of power. Now she returned to something else. Not a guest. Not a diplomat. She was the voice of humanity, and humanity demanded justice. The Grand Chamber was silent. Human soldiers stood at every entrance, their weapons ready. The great flags of the council had been torn down. In their place hung a simple black banner with 12 million names written in white. Every human who died on New Busan was remembered here. High Arbiter Velos sat in chains at the center of the room. 12 council elders sat beside him, all of them bound. Their fine robes were dirty. Their proud faces were filled with fear. General Minho Choi stood at the front of the chamber. His uniform was covered in medals from a lifetime of service. His face was hard as stone. "This tribunal is now in session," he announced. "The accused are charged with conspiracy, genocide, and crimes against humanity." "How do you answer?" Velos lifted his chin. Even in chains, he tried to look powerful. "You have no authority here. This is a violation of galactic law. The council has immunity from prosecution. You cannot. You speak of law?" Captain Unikim stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. "Let me show you something about law." She pressed a button, and the walls came alive with images. New Busan before the attack. Beautiful cities. Green fields. Children playing in parks. Families having meals together. Then the bombs fell. The images showed everything. The first explosions. The buildings collapsing. People running through streets filled with fire. Bodies lying in the ashes. A mother holding her dead child and screaming at the sky. The sound filled the chamber. 12 million people dying. Crying for help that never came. Yuna let it play for a long time. Then she turned to Velos and spoke in that same quiet voice. Which law protected them? Velos could not answer. For the first time in 300 years, he had nothing to say. Ambassador Hannah Lee approached the prisoners. She looked at each of them in turn. These creatures who had ordered the death of her cousin's children, 12 million souls who had done nothing wrong? "We have evidence," she said. "Communications between this council and the Dominion fleet. Orders that came directly from this room. You planned the attack for months. You chose New Busan because it was far from Earth. You thought we would be too weak to respond." She held up a data device. "Every word is recorded. Every decision is documented. You are not accused because we hate you. You are accused because you are guilty." Velos finally found his voice. "We can negotiate. We can offer you territory, resources, whatever you want. Humanity can rule alongside us. We can share power." Admiral Taiho Park stepped forward. He had watched the trial in silence until now. "You think we came here for power?" "Everyone wants power," Velos said. "Name your price." Taiho shook his head slowly. "You truly do not understand us at all." He pointed at the images still playing on the walls. "Those were our people, our families, our children. You cannot buy them back. You cannot negotiate their lives away. We did not come for your throne. We came for justice." The trial continued for 3 days. Witnesses spoke. Evidence was presented. Every crime was documented and recorded. Humanity made sure the entire galaxy watched. On the 4th day, General Minho Choi stood to deliver the verdict. The tribunal finds all accused guilty of genocide and conspiracy against humanity. The council elders began to shout. Some begged for mercy. Some cursed the humans. Velos sat in silence, his face empty. The sentence, Minho continued, is exile. The accused will be stripped of all titles and authority. They will be sent to a barren moon at the edge of the galaxy. They will live out their remaining years in isolation, far from the civilization they once ruled. Velos looked up. You are not going to kill us? Hannah Lee answered him. Death would be easy. You would be gone, and the galaxy would forget what you did. But this way, you will live. You will wake up every day knowing that you had everything and lost it all. You will see the galaxy change without you. That is a punishment worthy of your crimes. The elders were led away one by one. Most of them went quietly, too broken to resist. But Velos stopped in front of Hannah Lee. He was old and weak and defeated, but hate still burned in his eyes. You were supposed to be the weak ones, he whispered. You were supposed to bow to us. Hannah met his gaze without flinching. That was your first mistake? What was the second? She leaned closer. Thinking we would forget? Velos was dragged away. Hannah watched him go and felt something she had not expected. Not satisfaction. Not relief. Just sadness. So many had died to bring them to this moment. Nothing could bring them back. Only one council member was not sentenced. Emissary Thren had opposed the attack on New Busan from the beginning. He had tried to warn his leaders. He had been ignored. Taeho approached him after the trial. You have a choice. Help us build a new order in this galaxy, or join your masters in exile. Thren looked at the human admiral. He saw no anger in his eyes. No desire for revenge. Just tired determination to make something better from the ashes of the old. I will help, Thren said. Not because I fear you, but because you are right. What the council did was wrong. The galaxy deserves better leaders. Taeho nodded. Then we have work to do. Outside the Grand Chamber, human soldiers lowered their weapons. The war was over. Justice had been served, but the hardest part was still ahead. Destroying was easy. Building would be much harder. Humanity had proven they could fight. Now they had to prove they could lead. 1 year had passed since the fall of the old council. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have imagined. A new galactic assembly. Gathered in a great hall built from the ruins of the old chambers, representatives from 100 worlds sat together, speaking as equals for the first time in history. There were no thrones here. No masters and servants. Just a circle of chairs where every voice had the same weight. Ambassador. Hannah Lee had been elected as the first speaker of the assembly. She had not wanted the job. She had seen too much death, carried too much pain. But the other species had insisted. They trusted her to be fair. They trusted her to remember the past and still build toward the future. She stood at her podium and looked at the faces around her. Some of them had been enemies a year ago. Some of them had supported the attack on New Busan. Now they sat beside human representatives and worked together on laws that would protect all species equally. It was strange. It was difficult. But it was working. Admiral Taeho Park had begun withdrawing human forces from the council capital. His soldiers packed up their weapons and returned to their ships. They had not come to conquer. They had come to break chains. Now that the chains were broken, they could go home. Taeho stood on the bridge of the Unforgiving one last time and looked at the planet below. So much blood had been spilled here. So many lives had been changed forever. He had given the orders that killed millions of alien soldiers. He had done what was necessary. He would never forgive himself for it, sir. His lieutenant said, The last transports are ready. We can leave whenever you give the order. Taeho nodded slowly. Set course for Earth. It is time to go home. Captain Yuna Kim did not return with the fleet. She had a different journey to make. Her ship flew for weeks until it reached the rebuilt colony of New Busan. The planet had been lifeless after the attack. Nothing grew. Nothing lived. The ground itself was scarred and black, but humans had returned. They always returned. New buildings rose from the ashes. New farms spread across the healing land. Children played in new parks built on the same ground where millions had died. Yuna walked to the memorial at the center of the city. It was a wall of black stone, 50 meters tall, covered with names. 12 million names. Every person who had died in the attack was remembered here. She found the names she was looking for. Her sister. Her sister's husband. Her sister's 2 children. She had never told anyone about them. She'd carried that grief alone through the war, using it as fuel for her rage. Now, the war was over. The rage was gone. Only the grief remained. Yuna placed flowers at the base of the wall and finally let herself cry. She had been strong for so long. She had become hard and cold to survive. But here, surrounded by the names of the dead, she could be human again. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am sorry I could not save you, but I made them pay. I made them answer for what they did." The wind blew through the memorial. Yuna liked to think it was her sister's voice. It's telling her it was okay to rest now. Dr. Sujin Han received a message from the new assembly. They wanted humanity to share their weapons technology. The gravity bombs. The pulse missiles. All the terrible things she had created in her underground laboratory, she refused. Some knowledge should stay buried, she told the assembly's envoy. We built these weapons because we had no choice. They were born from grief and anger and desperation. I will not spread that darkness across the galaxy, the envoy argued. He talked about fairness and equality and sharing. Sujin listened politely and then said no again. If another species faces what we faced, she said, I pray they find their own way through the darkness. But I will not hand them tools of genocide. I have enough ghosts haunting my dreams already. Lieutenant Woojin Beek was promoted to captain and given command of a new peacekeeping fleet. His mission was simple. Make sure no species ever faced what New Busan had faced. He flew from system to system, watching and waiting. When conflicts arose, he stepped in to negotiate. When bullies threatened weaker species, he showed them that they were not alone. Humanity remembers what it feels like to be helpless, he told his crew. We will never let another world burn while we watch and do nothing. Emissary Thren addressed his own people in a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. He stood before millions and told them the truth about what the old council had done. We were wrong, he said. We thought humans were weak because they valued peace. We thought we could crush them because they trusted us. But we did not understand them at all. He paused and looked at the camera. Humans are not weak. They are patient. They do not fight because they enjoy violence. They fight because they will not accept injustice. They showed us mercy when we deserved none. They could have burned our worlds and slaughtered our people. Instead, they punished the guilty and spared the innocent. That is not weakness. That is strength beyond anything we have ever known. General Minho Choi retired to a small house by the ocean on Earth. He spent his days sitting on his porch, watching the waves and thinking about the past. Sometimes young soldiers came to visit him. They wanted to hear stories about the war. They wanted to learn from the general who had led humanity to victory. Minho told them the truth. War is not glorious, he said. It is necessary sometimes, but it is never good. The best victory is the war that never has to be fought. Remember that when you lead, the soldiers listened and nodded. Some of them understood. Some of them would have to learn the hard way. Ambassador Hannah Lee stood before the Galactic Assembly for the final address of her first year as speaker. 100 species watched her in silence. We never wanted war, she said. We wanted only to live among you as equals. When that was taken from us, we responded without mercy. Not because we are cruel, but because mercy requires trust, and trust must be earned. She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes from a dozen different species. Let this be the lesson we carry forward. The galaxy belongs to all who respect it. Harm no one unjustly, and you will find humanity to be the greatest friend you have ever known. Her voice grew harder. But threaten us again. And remember what happened to those who tried before. The chamber was silent. Every representative understood. Every species had learned humanity was not to be underestimated. Not anymore. Not ever again. The meeting ended. The representatives returned to their worlds. And across the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, there was peace. Real peace. Earned peace. The kind of peace that only comes after fire. And in the ashes, something new was growing.